Hello, geometry folks. This is Mr. Heron, and welcome to the beginning of Unit 8. Unit 8 is right in the middle of Geometry B, so once you're done with Unit 8, you are past halfway. So here's where we start looking at the two-dimensional shapes and kind of how they work and figuring out the area of those things. So we start with parallelograms and we start with triangles, basically because those are about the simplest forms that we can use, okay? So let's talk here. So this is a parallelogram, okay? So parallelogram, we've talked about it before, but it's been a very, very long time. If in order to be a parallelogram, you have to have a whole bunch of things true. You know, the opposite sides are congruent, or parallel, the opposite sides are congruent. You know, diagonals are congruent. Or not congruent, but diagonals bisect and all those other pieces as well. Now we're just trying to figure out the area of this thing. So the area of this thing is just a fancy way of saying how much two-dimensional space does this thing take up. So the short answer, okay, is going to be base times height. Okay, base times height. So we call this a base. We call this a height, and how do you know it's a height? You know it's a height if it's a right angle there, okay? So this is a height basically because that is perpendicular. All right, so the area of a parallelogram, any parallelogram, so anything that fits under the parallelogram umbrella is going to be found by doing this. Okay, and this carries over. I mean, if you have a rhombus, where all four sides are equal. If you have a square is pretty simple. All those things are going to fit into that category. So any kind of parallelogram, it's just going to be base times height. That's all it is. And I won't explain. I won't go too much farther into depth, but it's just going to be base times height, and that's going to be kind of your answer. Okay, so now, if I look here, I'm looking to find the perimeter and the area. Now, perimeter just means, you know, your distance around. That's all that means. If you're going distance around, and your area is going to be space inside. That's kind of all you're looking at. So your distance around and your space inside. So my distance around. So if I start here at point C, I go 4 inches. Walk up here, I go 10 inches. I come back this length, that's going to be another 4 inches. And I come back down, that's going to be another 10 inches. So 4 plus 10 plus 4 plus 10. A shorter way to do it might say twice the length plus twice the width. So in this case, it'd be 2 times 4 plus 2 times 10, which should equal 28 inches. That'll be my answer, 28 inches. Area is a little different because, like in here, my base will be the 10, my height will be the 5. Okay, now, my base is not the 4. How do I know? Because the 5 inches, my height goes from one 10-inch side to the other 10-inch side, okay? That's how I know this. That's how I know 10 is the base. So that answer will just be 50 inches. And then because I'm talking about area, I label that squared. Okay, so that's set as inches squared. That's what that means. So 50 inches squared. And that all that stems from the idea that, like, if I've got a rectangle and it's a 4x3 rectangle, well, then I can break this up into 4 equal parts. And I can break this up into 3 equal parts. So then I have each 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So each one of these is 1 square inch, okay? So that'd be 1 square inch. So together there would be 12 square inches. So So all I say to the variation on that is I just say inches squared. Okay, so all that tells me is I'm dealing with space. I'm not dealing with a length, I'm dealing with an actual space. And this is just kind of a just quick version of how that works and why that works. So if I look here, let me expand that for a moment. So here I've got a little bit of work to do. Okay, the perimeter is not too difficult. Okay, so 21, 17, this one will be 21, this one will be 17. So it'll be 2 times 21 plus 2 times 17. So that's 42, that's 34. Total answer is going to be 76 centimeters. All right, that's not too, I mean, just you could honestly just add up all four sides and get there. Now I have to be careful because my area is base times height. I know that my base is going to be 21. My height, most kids that will put it wrong will put 17 for a height. Okay, a lot of them will try to put 17 here and multiply that. That's going to be wrong. That's not my perpendicular side. I need to figure out what this is. But I don't quite know how to do it, except I know that I've got a right triangle and I need a missing side. So I'm hoping that something jumps into your head that rhymes with Pythagorean theorem, because that's what I would do. I would do the Pythagorean theorem, a squared b squared equals c squared, to where I'm looking for, I'll call this x squared, because I'm looking for that side, 8 squared and 17 squared. So that becomes 64 plus, that becomes 289. 289 minus 64 will be 225. So that will be 15. So that means this side will be 15, not 17. So to solve, take 25 or 21 times 15. That will give me my answer of 315 centimeters squared. Not too tough, nothing too brain-breaking. This was a good review of a past concept, but nothing terrible. So now we got to get a little more clever here. So now, okay, I've got this length is 23. I know this is 23. I've got a height here of 24. Yes, the height can be outside of the shape. It would be no different than if I just put it here. Okay, I could definitely put my height. It would still be 24. That's fine. But I need to figure out this side length. Okay, well, first off, let's do this. I can figure out the area pretty easily. 23 times 24 is going to be 552 square feet, okay, or feet squared, square feet. Now to figure out my perimeter, though, I've got 7, I've got 24. I need to figure out that. I kind of gave away what I'm going to do. I'm going to go a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 24 squared is 576. So that's going to give me 625. And if I square root that, that's going to give me 25. So that means this is 25 and this is 25. So my perimeter, 2 times 25 plus 2 times 23. So that's going to be 50 plus 46. So that'll give me 96 feet. But again, all I'm doing, reusing Pythagorean theorem to kind of help me out here. So now if I look, now I need special right triangles. Ooh, plot twist. 45 degrees, that's 90. That makes that a 45 degrees. Now I need to kind of get a little clever here, right? So I know that this is 9. So now let's kind of just sketch out our situation here. 45, 45, 90, and my hypotenuse is 9, I need to figure out my height. Well, if I can remember what I know about 45, 45, 90, that's going to be x square root of 2. So x square root of 2 equals 9. So now, leaving it like that, here I want an actual value. So I'm just going to take 9 divided by square root of 2. And I get 6.364. That's what I would consider my height, 6.364. That's what I would use there. Okay, that's what I would use there. So perimeter's not too terrible, is 2 times 9 plus 2 times 12. So it'd be 18 plus 24. So that will be 42, let's call it units. So then my area becomes 12, because that's my base, times my height, 6.364. When I multiply that, I get 76.37, rounded, units squared. So there's my answer. And again, if you're unfamiliar with the rules, you can go back and look. I believe they're in 6.2, 6.3, something like that. Just realizing kind of what those relationships are and how to manipulate your numbers just so you get the right ones. Okay. Another one using special right triangles. Trying to bring back some memories here. So, this is 32. That makes this 32. Here, I need 2 of them. I need 2 values, okay? Because I need to figure out this length, and I need to figure out my height. So let's consider this. I've got 30 degrees. I know that's 12. Okay, so 30, that's my short side. Okay, so remember 30, 60, 90. I have short side, I have medium side, and I have long side. Okay, so short side is always half of the long side. So if this is 12, my hypotenuse is 24, which means this length is 24. And then the middle side right here is whatever the short side is times square root of 3. So this would be 12 times square root of 3, which as a decimal, because that's what we're kind of using here, it'll be 20.78. So my perimeter, nothing more than 2 times 32 plus 2 times 24. So 64, 48, 112 meters. Okay, that's not too terrible. This setup right here, I think, is going to be the thing that kind of breaks this open. Area becomes 32 times 20.78. So I get that to be about 665.11 rounded meters squared. And if you're a little bit off in some of your calculations, but you're in the neighborhood, you'll still get it right. There might be a little bit of a decimal point off here or there, but that's okay. That happens due to rounding and whatnot. I should say that for an area, one of the things that a lot of kids get wrong is they take 12 times 20.78, which is just, all they did was take this part because they think this part is the base. Well, this would be the base of this triangle, but I want the whole base. That's what I want. Triangles. What is your biggest difference between the area of a parallelogram, area of a triangle? It is still the same kind of idea. So I have my height, I have a base, except if I take base times height, that would be the equivalent of finding a parallelogram like that. Okay, so what I end up doing is I end up taking half. Okay, because if you look, the triangle ends up being half of this parallelogram, and the triangle ends up being half of this parallelogram. So it ends up being just 1/2 of whatever the parallelogram would be. That would correlate to my triangle. Okay, and don't worry if you're overly confused. I'm not asking you to figure out the philosophy behind this. So base is the whole thing times my height, except I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, or multiply by 1/2. They are equivalent. I don't want to do that. So if I look, a little bit of work to do. Actually, I can figure out my area without too much struggle. So I'm counting 19 as the base, 30 is my height. So this one's pretty easy. 19 times 30 divided by 2. That will be 285 inches squared. I'm still dealing with it in area, so it's still squared. So now to figure out perimeter, I need to figure out this length right here. Again, I've got a right triangle. I've got 2 of the sides. Figure out the third. So I'll take 27 squared plus 30 squared equals c squared. And that's going to equal 1629. So 40.36 will equal C. So I call that 40.36 plus 41 plus 19. So that's going to be 100.36 inches. And that's my answer. That's my answer. Now, obvious mistake in the instructions. This is not a parallelogram. This is a triangle. So, (13 and 6). That's a right triangle. I need to figure out this thing. All right, so I'll call that B squared. I'll call that B. So it would be 6 squared plus B squared equals 13 squared. So 169 minus 36 is going to be 133. So that'll be 11.53. But then I immediately need to do that to figure out that as well for my perimeter. So what I'll do is I'll say this. My area is just going to be 29 times 11.53 divided by 2. And that, after some calculator mashing, is just 167.22 centimeters squared. Now, to figure out my perimeter, I'm going to do that again, okay? I'm going to do that again. I've got 29, and this is actually square root of 133, and I'll show you why I do that in a second, is c squared. So now here, that's 100 square root, that's a square root of 133 squared plus 29 squared equals c squared. Now I do this because if I take the square root and the square, they cancel each other out, and I'm just left with 133. So that's why I do it. So c squared equals 974. Square root, square root. So that becomes 31.21. So then if I add those three together, I get 71.74 centimeters. That's my answer. That's my answer. All right, so a couple of word problems here. You need to buy enough boards to make the frame of a triangular sandbox and enough sand to fill it. If one board is 3 feet long and one bag fills 9 square feet of sand of the sandbox, how many boards and how many bags do you need? So boards will be perimeter. So that'll just be 16 plus 12 plus 7.5. So that will be 35.5. Now, if each board is 3 feet long, how many are you going to need? So I divide that by 3. So that's 11.83. So I will need 12 boards. For the sand, that's going to be area. So I'm going to take 12 times 9 divided by 2. So that's going to be 54 feet squared divided by 9. So I'm going to need 6 bags of sand. That's my answer. That's my answer. Okay, so now all you do, figure out the value of x. Boom, there it is. That is not the correct answer, okay? But this is just an example of, find the value of x, not find x. Find x is here. That's easy. Figure out the value. Okay, don't do this. Don't do that. Don't be that kid. Okay. Now, just kind of one example working backwards. Okay, so area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height equals area. So 1/2, I know the base is 34. My height is x, and that's going to be 357 inches squared. So now I got to do some algebra here. So I've got to combine this. 34 divided by 2 is 17. So now I take 357 divided by 17, and x will equal 21. So that's my height. That's all I do. Okay, so now, quick, tricky word problem here a little bit. The base of a parallelogram is twice the height. So if that's my height, the base will be 2h. The area is 72. So you take base times height equals area. So this becomes 2h squared equals 72. A little algebra. Square root. My height is 6. So the height is 6. What's the base? Well, the base is double. So the base will be 12. That's it. That's it. Good challenge problems on those last two. Okay, so play around with this. Okay, make sure that you've got your things in the right places, and we will talk to you soon.